Welcome to our candidates night for mayoral candidates for the city of Athens. We will have opening statements from each candidate for 3 minutes, and then we will move to questions. And each of the panel, each of the representatives in news media will be invited to ask a question, 2 rounds, so that'll be 8 questions, and then we'll move to questions from the audience. And thanks to Ed Baum's astuteness, we have a slight change from anything you've seen before. And recognizing that if you answer a question first and I answer it second, why I might say some things that you would be pleased to respond to. So in answering the questions, the first responder has 1.5 minutes, the second one has 2 minutes, and the first responder can come back for 30 seconds if he chooses. And then we'll have I said 2 rounds of questions from the panel and then questions from the audience, and then we'll have 2-minute closing statements by our candidates. And the orders have been determined by lot. So for the opening statement, the first one will be Randy Morris and then Paul Weil, and that order was determined by lot. Then when we get down to answering the questions, again, lots were cast, and then the order for the closing statements. And once we start answering questions, why then we'll alternate order. If one person gives the first answer to a question, the other candidate will answer first for the next question. And so I think we're ready to start in, and let's invite the opening statements, 3-minute opening statement by Randy Morris.
First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this event. I'd like to thank the library for hosting it. I have a special occurrence going on right now with my family. My son-in-law's paintings are in the conference room of the library right now, so it means a lot to be here tonight. And obviously, I thank all the people that came to hear the debate. I hope you hear enough to help you form a decision about whether which one of us is going to be the candidate you vote for. I view this as a job interview. You are the folks that are going to be hiring the next mayor, and we'll do our best to convey to you what we stand for and what we will bring to the office. And ultimately, it's the decision of the voters to decide who the next mayor is going to be. I feel it's important to emphasize that this election is about leadership. In a statutory city, we have a mayor, we don't have a city manager. So the mayor has to not only do some of the things that mayors do, proclamations and attending events and some of the social things, but he also has to lead a staff of over 160 people, make sure they're pulling and all pulling together in the same direction, that they understand who their customers are, you, and that requires leadership. It requires managerial skills, and it requires administrative skills. So we both obviously feel like we're the best candidate for that position, and I will try to convince you that I am the best candidate for that position because of my background. I have background in the military. I was in the military for 29 years and led organizations that were larger and every bit as complicated as the city government. So I believe I can lead. I believe I can work with city council, which will, regardless of who gets elected, will be predominantly the other party if I'm elected. But I will work with anyone who will work with me. And I think that I can get the job done and be an effective mayor. So I urge you to consider going beyond the status quo and believe that things can be better in the community with better leadership. Thank you.
Next statement, Paul Weil.
First of all, I'd like to say I'm honored to serve as mayor for the past 3+ years, and I hope to do so for another 4. I guess I don't look at this as a job interview so much as a continuation of what I'm doing. My accomplishments, I think, are very evident, what I've been doing for the past 4 years. Those accomplishments are not myself. not only myself, but my administrative team that I run, and the public servants who work day and night to make sure that the city runs as seamlessly as possible. One of my goals when I got into it was increase communication with the public. We've had town meetings, so everybody's been welcome to that. We've had social networking, both Twitter and Facebook. My door is always open as a mayor. City Hall, come on in, talk to me. And you can stop me if with concern if you walk down the street, which many of you already do. I'd say, in terms of a job interview, most of the time when I've had my jobs, I haven't had to actually do an interview. Most of the time I'd walk down the street as a lab tech, go down the hallway and talk to the previous research I've worked with. And they usually had a lot of glowing recommendations. I very seldom had to actually print my resume out and do such to actually refer to it. Some of the goals that are easily measurable at this point are the infrastructure ones. The roundabout, for instance, Jeff Hill, which I worked in close conjunction in coordination with Ohio University, both to get their infrastructure needs as well as ours. The Carpenter Street, I guess that's obvious. I don't know if you need to get a resume for that. Jeff Hill, as I said, is opening. The roundabout. Harold Avenue. I don't know how many of you went down Harold Avenue with the telephone pole in the middle of the street. These are improvements that we put forward. Curtis Mulligan water lines. These are things that were put together, also leveraged with grants, outside grant money. So I've been a good steward of our money to make it stretch further. Other aspects of it, I put a planner in place who's been very good, part of my administration team, part of the good management that's gone through. We've been able to chart where we need to go in the future needs of our city. We have, of course, a bike pedestrian plan, and a tree inventory, ash tree inventory. Looking forward to the annual ash borer coming out of the way, which we hope will not make it, but it will. We also have a sidewalk inventory to improve sidewalks in the future. I could ramble on about other things. I could talk about the Go Bus that I've put in place and connecting us with the rest of the city. I could talk about the ladder truck, and I got 30 seconds to go. I could talk about the solar panels, the green efficiency of our buildings to get ourselves fixed up and make ourselves more efficient in terms of our dollars. But really the future things are what I'm talking about, we should be concerned about. We have South Richland Avenue to be done. We have, and I have 15 seconds to go, we have the wastewater treatment plants that need to be upgraded. We have Oxbow Bridge that will be torn down and rebuilt next year. We have a lot of issues that are coming through and a lot of projects in place. We have a solid waste district that needs to be helped, and it says stop. And thank you.
Thank you both. Now let's turn now to questions from the media reps. And just to review it quickly, the first question, Paul, you will answer it first, and then Randy, and then after that we'll reverse. And the order for members of the media, just to review that real quickly, David, you asked the first question, Marika, Fred, and Sarah Brumfield. And so with that, David DeWitt of the Athens News will invite your question.
Thank you. Good evening. With losses to city income in the hundreds of thousands from the elimination of monies from tangible personal property, the estate tax, and cuts to local government funds, which city operations should be prioritized at this time, and which operations become more expendable?
Hold on a second.
And Paul, that's yours to field.
Yes, I'm just writing it down so I remember.
Fine.
The essential, of course, what you're talking about is the loss of actual general fund dollars for the most part. That's where our income tax goes, and that's where most of the local government funds go into. If you look at water and sewer, they're actually pay rate based, so therefore they can hold on to their own. If you start looking at what's in the general fund, of course, you have police, fire, which almost take a quarter of our income general fund as is. Other ones would be code. Which ones to drop? Recreation is actually part of the income tax mix, but I hesitate to do that. If you're going to say priorities, what have to be put in place, you'd have to start working your way down. I hope really to actually maintain the services as best possible. I think reorganization has worked pretty well right now. We've managed to bond and bind up and bond the streets with water and sewer for better efficiencies. We have other ideas of efficiencies in place, which I really can't go into because they will affect personnel for their enactment. So I'm hoping not to lose any of our services if possible. Again, there'll be a leaning out and less capital investment, unfortunately. But this is what has been happening. We're trying to get skinny government coming down from Columbus, unfortunately. And as a result, we're going to have to tighten our belts or increase local taxes. Neither one is a great option at this point. 15 seconds, I'll stop.
Randy?
Well, the budget cuts will be a challenge. It seems to me that the mayor needs to look at priorities, as you mentioned, which ones would be the highest priority. And the priorities, it seems to me, for a city, there are some core functions that cities are expected to provide. Provide for streets and provide for, as he mentioned, sewer and water and snow removal. There are things; those are things that cities are expected to do, and your report card as a mayor certainly those are the grades that people are going to remember if you don't do those. Because of in my belief, the deplorable condition of our streets right now, I certainly wouldn't cut streets first. I would recommend that a zero-based budget be looked at, where everything has to be justified. We look at which programs aren't working, and deal with the budget shortfall that way. But also, I believe the mayor should be advocating job creation, encouraging small business creation and job growth in the city, which of course would add revenue to the city through the income tax, and that could alleviate some of the shortfall. So I would go into it with the hope that no program would have to be eliminated. There might need to be some creative revenue creation. Places like Arts West, for example, we might want to look at getting corporate sponsors for the rooms that are there and for the facility in general, as ways to create revenue that again would help alleviate the shortfall, with the goal of not eliminating any programs in the city.
Paul, if you wish to respond, you've got 30 seconds at your disposal.
30 seconds at my disposal. We've actually been working pretty hard to maintain the budget as is. We have a soft hiring freeze in place right now with the council working with us and the auditor. I've been tasking my department heads to actually go after grants, since they know what the needs are as best possible. If you look in terms of building resiliency, we have been doing energy efficiency upgrades with our services in terms of buildings, as well as the next one coming up will be the wastewater treatment plant grant to improve the efficiency of that. So, stop. Thanks. I'm watching.
Okay, Randy, you'll address this question first, and we will turn to Marika Lee of the Ohio University Post.
Hi, my question is, how do you plan to help job creation in Athens?
Well, I believe that the mayor should be, one of the foremost jobs of a mayor is to be a cheerleader for small business in the community, and job creation is, I think I work for the National Business Incubation Association, and we work with the Kauffman Foundation, which is a foundation that deals with entrepreneurship. And small business in this country create about 60% of all the new jobs. So job creation, in my opinion, is something that needs to be encouraged. That the mayor needs to be a cheerleader for that, needs to do everything in his power to get the government of Athens, the city employees, to be facilitators of job creation rather than roadblocks. And that's a matter of leadership, making sure that, again, everybody in the city government understands that it's in everybody's best interest to create jobs and small business in the community from within. And it's a great opportunity for the mayor to get out and see the people and encourage. The mayor should be at every new business opening. There are just lots of things that the mayor can do, from smoothing the path for small businesses as they're trying to create jobs in the community. And I think it's a very important role for the mayor.
Paul?
The question was how to create jobs. Is that?
Yes, how you plan to create jobs?
I've been doing it already. I've been working hard at that. If you look at the nursing home that's going in on Columbus Road right now, we pursued a ARC grant for an access road. We helped out with the revolving loan fund that they actually declined, as well as economic development money. I'm the Vice President of Economic Development Council. This is the spinoff of the Chamber of Commerce that was done about 3 years ago. I have been to openings. I've been a cheerleader. Whenever somebody does need the mayor to show up, I show up. You can ask Todd Shelton about that. You can ask Wendy Jackmus about that. As for helping small businesses, I signed Trexing letters for both Salams and Zoe's. Trexing letters are actually to enable them to get liquor licenses for their businesses. These are small businesses, small restaurants that will actually assist in their bottom line. You can ask them about that as well. I'm a local endorser of all local businesses. I've been a cheerleader for the 30-mile meal. Got up there and made proclamations for this. It's an ongoing activity. We realize, of course, we're at a point where we had an economic crisis, so we're in a pretty much of a dry spell. But again, I'm always willing to help out and talk to everybody, and actually be a cheerleader for the region as well, which is actually global cooling, for instance, where their assistance, even though they're moving outside the city, to help them grow. So there are things I'm working on. They're always there. I'm trying. That's part of my job, and I've done it as best I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy, if you choose to reply, 30 seconds.
Okay, I would just like to emphasize the fact that the city currently seems to pick winners, and they do a good job of supporting those businesses that they support. I mean, the ones that they like. But I can assure you that an awful lot of small business people in Athens do not feel the city government is supportive of them and is doing everything in their power to help them, and that needs to change.
Thank you. For our third question, Paul, you'll respond first, and then Randy, and we turn to Fred Kite of WOUB. Fred?
Well, I had a question all ready to go, Mr. Morris, but what you just said there is rather intriguing. And I'd like for you to give me some examples of, as I understand what you said, businesses having problems with the city in terms of their coming here or their expansion. What exactly did you mean by that, and could you give an example or two, please? And how would you have handled things better?
Actually, I think it's my turn. Isn't
You're
it?
first.
Do you suppose you could frame that question more broadly?
I certainly could. I'm sorry, I was thinking...
What would you think if we went to the next media questioner and let you reformulate that? Would that be a good idea?
Actually, I think I can do it on the fly,
Go right
Ellsworth,
ahead.
If you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Apparently there are some people in the community who think that you have been not helping some members of the business community. Are there some problems associated with that have where you've not acted fairly with all businesses?
That's a good question. I can only think of 3 times when I've heard disappointment from various businesses coming in. National Church residents that wanted to put the continuum care nursing home here. Actually, they crashed and burned probably because of the housing bubble in 2008. So it had very little to do with me, although I'm trying to figure out how that would be an influence. 3 Wide, for instance, on Stimson. I think I was against that, so therefore that could be a problem, yes. I'm not sure if that's an appropriate place for a strip joint. Let's see, other ones. What would be another one? The development of a nursing home out on 56, where they wanted to extend our water system, or rather our sewer system, without annexation. Again, there's policy and laws that actually interfere with businesses coming in. You have limitations of what you can do. You follow the laws. And I can't think of any other instances where I've had a problem. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, Randy?
Well, I've been told anecdotally that there was an employer that you mentioned coming in from out of town. That's not what I've been emphasizing, but the one that comes to mind from out of town came in and met with city leaders, and they didn't get exactly what I've been told, they didn't get a warm reception from the mayor, and they chose to go to another community. But what I was really talking about was small businesses in the community. If you watch city council, it seems to me that several of the people on city council, and to some degree the mayor, tend to convey the message that small business people, certainly landlords, are not good people, and they need to be watched. There's a suspicion there. They're bad people until proven otherwise, and it doesn't. And that is conveyed to the small business people that I've talked to. People who have asked for signs, and they've been told no answer whatsoever. They're not even told no. They're just not given an answer at all. They feel like when they're dealing with the city employees to try to get improvements to their property, that there are more impediments than there is help. And again, I think it's a matter of leadership, trying to get everybody on the team understanding that it's in everybody's best interest for small businesses to succeed, so they can create jobs and create wealth in the community, and we can all, again, that helps our budget deficit as well. So there's just a tendency to throw all of our support behind certain industries and throw some roadblocks, or at least not help much at all businesses that are not quite as attractive to the city.
Paul, 30 seconds for you if you like.
Well, it sounds like if I back the winners, my success rate must be good. On the other hand, small business, I do not know if any business came in that I did not choose to meet. I've been side by side with Mr. Hayes when he's trying to get some people into his building on East State Street. In terms of the landlords, it's the law. Whatever has to be done with the law. I don't know what their complaints are because that's up to code. If they're actually having problems with code, it's probably more the code issues than actually attitudes. And when you look at it, council is not me.
Okay, thank you both. And our next question, Randy, you will address it first, and for that we'll turn to Sarah Brumfield of the Athens Messenger. Sarah?
With council proposing some anti-fracking legislation in the city limits, do you view fracking as an environmental hazard or something that could bring some money into the community?
I fully support what city council has proposed to do. Fracking, whether all the negative claims about it are true or not, I don't know. I'm sure that the rosy claims by the other side are not true either, and it's certainly not to that full extent. But the bottom line is there's no need for anybody to do fracking, do drilling in the city limits. So I think it's perfectly fine to, so I support a ban on fracking in Athens. And to another point that I've heard concerns in the community, they're concerned that we're going to sell our water to fracking, because as I understand it, fracking is very water intensive. I wouldn't support that. I would support not selling our water to the fracking industry because our water is very important to us. And my grandson drinks the same water you do, and I don't want him to drink bad water either. So I'm in full support of the city's position to ban fracking in Athens.
Paul?
I would have to concur. I think actually we should extend it past the city limits. Allahu actually brought up for us Gosney, a city council member, brought forth a piece of legislation or a piece of our high revised code saying that we have actually jurisdiction over 20 miles upstream of a water field. Right now, the Bureau of Land Management has got about 2,600 acres for sale up near Nelsonville. They could pull the water out of the river, which actually may suck the river a little bit at 4 million gallons per well. That could actually impact us, if not even, not so much in the drainage as well, but the silting and any spills that would occur upstream from us. We are upstream of that sale. I think the sale will take place December 7th, so if you've got your wallets, go for it. Fracking in general, I think it's a kind of a land rush. It's an extraction industry. I think Randy and I would both agree that is not what we consider small business, nor a sustainable business. It's not something you're going to be able to hand down to your children. It's not something that's going to last forever. Well, and a boom and bust cycle that you see with other extractions, unfortunately. I know the wisdom out there is we should take advantage of it, but as I say, the advantage, most of the workers come in. There was a study done in Penn State that says about half the jobs predicted have not occurred, and that the actual, again, is hyperbole in both areas where it happens, whether it's real bad or real good. But it's really it's a rush, and therefore, like a gold rush or like sell your heirlooms rush, there's probably things being missed in the process, and mistakes will be made and damage will be done, especially to environment. I don't want to have to bathe out of this for the rest of my life. I can't imagine trying to pour it over my head every day to wash. Thanks.
Thank you. Randy, 30 seconds if you choose.
Well, again, there's no disagreement with when it comes to protecting our water. I've traveled all over the world, and one of the things that Americans who haven't traveled, I feel like they take their water for granted. There's so little of the world where you can actually go to a tap, get a glass of water and drink it and not die. And we as Americans need to protect our water, and certainly we in Athens need to protect our water.
Okay, thank you. And for our next question, Paul, you'll address it first, and we turn again to David DeWitt of the Athens News. David?
Thank you. From my point of view in the newsroom, I've noticed a rash of certain types of crime over the past year, specifically in the Mill Street, Near East Side neighborhood, sexual assaults, and on the west side of town, Washington and West State Street, strong-arm robberies. What can be done to better address these types of crimes specifically, as well as crime in general? And would you support or would you consider foot patrols for police officers?
Hold on a second. Foot patrols, in general, would be effective, but they're in terms of observations, palliative observation. But with the police force we have now, barely up to staff at this point, it would not be effective to cover all the neighborhoods. If you look around, I think we have 24 full-time officers right now. We are supposed to be staffed at 26. To get around and say a foot patrol means some of the periphery would not be capable of actually being covered. On the other hand, we are working with the university covering their area. We had a discussion actually with President McDavis earlier today about the increase of sexual assaults. They're of two minds. I'm sure you've read the newsrooms as well, that whether it's an increase in reporting and or an uptick in general. As for crime, what you're seeing again, which is a poverty-stricken area, we're in hard times. Foot patrols, what would be more important is that the neighborhoods pay attention. If you see something, say something. If you wish to contact this Chief Pyle, or even Rick Crossan, they both will give you pointers on how to be safe, on how to protect your goods. They're open to addressing any particular venue, neighborhood association, organization, to make our city safer. But really, Pyle's observation of all the citizens are very important. A crime watch, there's discussion about that, but that's not really. You must look and say, what does a crime watch fit for you? And you make that decision in the neighborhood. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Randy?
Well, when I ran for city council 2 years ago, I talked with the then police chief, and he told me that we were running at about 73% of the size police force that we ought to have for a city this size. I think people on the east side of town, rarely see a police car unless there's an accident or a robbery. The police are stretched thin, so I believe we need more police officers, and that would require a change in priorities. If you watch city council and the goings on in the city government, when there's a budget crisis, the first thing they do is eliminate positions on the police and fire department. And I believe those are core functions of a city, and that they shouldn't be the first thing you cut. They should be one of the last things you cut. So I would do whatever the police chief felt was appropriate. Foot patrols would be fine with me if he felt it would be helpful. But the important thing is that we increase police presence so that there's an expectation by criminals that the police are out, and there's a very good chance that they're going to be caught if they violate the law.
Thank you. Paul?
Presently, general fund is about 30% of our budget goes to police and general fund, about 29.9 is an appropriation of last year. We do have overtime issues. We actually have special events that tie up and chew up that overtime. We work in conjunction with Ohio University in terms of the ratio of what you're seeing between population and the police force. You have to take into account the augmentation of the whole OUPD as well. They patrol on the periphery of the campus, and we call it a mutual aid agreement that works both ways. So we actually have a police force, a double police force in terms of OU as ourselves. We could always use more. It comes down to services and money and what people are willing to pay for. I listened to my police chief. I listened to his recommendations to make it a more effective force whenever possible. We're up for union contracts. Maybe we'll have a discussion about that as well.
Thank you. For our next question, Randy, you'll address it first, and we turn to Marika Lee of the Ohio University Post. Marika?
My question is, what are your thoughts on relations between Ohio University students and long-term residents of Athens, and how would you plan to better them if you think there's a problem?
In my opinion, the relationship with Ohio University is not as good as it could or should be. It reminds me a bit of a dysfunctional relationship. We, the city, tend to complain and ask for things, and the university appears to be in a superior position. I have a background in the military, and in the military, we have the exact same situation with bases and communities. And the bases and the communities that do well are the ones that understand that there's a mutual benefit here. The city of Athens could not survive without the university, and the university could not survive without Athens. So the relationship between the university and the city should be one of co-equal partners, and there should be the discussion should be based on co-equal stake in this. And we shouldn't do things to poke each other in the eyes, like not allow Bobcat Lane to be open and prohibit the use of crosswalks that the university puts up. We don't need to irritate each other. We need to work together.
Paul?
I believe you're asking about the relationship of residents and students rather than OU and the government. I think it works pretty well. There's always going to be a disconnect because of our lifestyles. I remember being able to stay up all night long and not have a problem going to class next day. As I got older, I could go to sleep earlier. Some of the issues we have, I thought we worked well in terms of the noise ordinance this past summer. There was an objection. There was actually a petition being put around for an initiative. My police chief met with student senate members, had a discussion how to augment it or change it to the policy to make it work better, had the cooperation of city council to make it possible. So we listened to the students. We said, how would this work? We now have a noise ordinance that is not a criminal offense for the first offense. There's no criminality involved. It's a ticket. The concept there is that we work both ways and listen to each other. I've been to city student senate. I work with students all the time. I meet them on the street. They come to city council meetings. They're my neighbors. The university does a good job with their community assistants out there for outreach of making sure that the students who are out there, who actually live in our neighborhoods, are knowledgeable of what needs to be done. They have actually been very helpful in funding I think they're up to 15 this year. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's about 15 CAs within the student neighborhoods to actually mentor the students on when the garbage is, what the noise ordinances are, what the problems are, and also what the issues might be. So there's a lot of communication going on. with off-campus housing. So if that's what you're talking about, students versus residents. And again, I don't really look at it as that, just more like as the police chief, who's more community-minded, as long-term and short-term residents, and that can include everybody, whether it's student or not.
Thank you. Randy?
Well, speaking to the town-gown relationship in terms of students and the long-term residents, I would like to see the mayor's position be a leader in trying to diffuse some of that disconnect between the students and the community. I feel like there's a contention by the words that are spoken at council meetings and that sort of thing, that the students are the problem, and I don't consider the students to be the problem. I think bad behavior from whether it's students or long-term residents are the problems.
Question for Paul. I have it straight this time.
Okay.
Mayor, if you would please, what do you think is the city's most pressing problem, and what is your solution to that problem?
What do I think? I'm thinking. Don't start the clock yet. I think the most pressing problem is infrastructure, from my point of view. And I would say, first of all, I'm biased on that. Having been a techie person, I always look towards infrastructure. But I'm aware of the fact that there are other issues that are involved with infrastructure. But I think the resources to do that infrastructure actually are the most pressing problem. We do not have enough resources. We'll never have enough resources. If you look at every year the council takes a trip down the streets, looking at the streets, they look at $1 million worth of repairs. We put 300,000 in. Sometimes we can put more in, depending on what we have. I've been pretty much devoting on large projects, and I think that's the solution, is to focus on the ones that need to be done and work systematically through them. Whether it's the roundabout, whether it's the Oxbow Bridge that is 70-plus years old, whether it's the Grosvenor Slip, which we're trying to do next year. These are what make the city function. The people are there. We listen to them as well. So the needs will flux depending on what comes up. I mean, we have slips that occur all the time, and we have to address those. We're chasing FEMA money because of the high rain that occurred this spring. So really the problem is always resources, but really in terms of priorities, I look at infrastructure fixes that have to be done first. Water, sewer, et cetera.
I would say it's difficult to pick the most pressing problem because there are so many. As I've already mentioned, streets and other issues that are out there. But I know when I go around knocking on doors and talking to people, one of the concerns that seems to come up the most often, and I think it's something that should be addressed, is the competent, consistent enforcement of our ordinances, specifically trash and litter. There have been some efforts, not very successful, unfortunately, to address these issues. But I think that's the thing that is bothering your average citizen of Athens the most right now is, for example, on my website you can see pictures of the area behind the Armory and next to Arts West, where in the middle of a session where we were supposed to be cleaning up litter in the community, the city didn't even clean up its own property. So leading by example was a bit of a problem there. I just would emphasize that this problem and all problems need to be addressed in a way that's constructive. I've taught and used group problem-solving techniques my whole military career. I enjoy doing it. I bring in all the disparate views together. I don't care whose solution we pick, as long as it works. And the problems that this community has need to be addressed with some creative problem solving. I think most of the problems we face, we're not using the best solution possible, and they all need to be looked at one more time with some group problem solving techniques, bringing all the disparate views into the picture and coming up with a solution that will solve the problem. And that's that's something the mayor can lead and do.
Paul?
Problem solving and some of the conditions, in particular litter, for instance. With the clean committee that's been in place for many years, we did Operation Clean Sweep this summer. You have to look and say that's ongoing. So it's a continuing effort to get the litter off the street. In terms of the dumpster behind the Armory, that's a part of the organization to centralize our garbage collection uptown. At the request of Uptown Business Association, UBA, to say let's have centralized garbage collection. Unfortunately, that has turned into, because of its location, in the back of the Armory, it has become like a collection. I hesitate to say it because there's going to be people driving in who are going to dump into there. Sorry. Stop. That was quick.
Thank you both. We'll turn to Sarah Brumfield of the Athens Messenger for the next question. Sarah?
How do you think Paul Weil has done in his first term?
I would say Paul Weil is a lot of things, and Paul and I have worked. Paul is very good at some things. Paul and I have worked together on the Athens City Commission on Disabilities, and we work well together. I think we've always gotten along, and we shook hands at the beginning of this campaign, saying that we were going to make this campaign on issues, not on dirty politics and dirty campaigning. However, everyone has strengths and everyone has weaknesses, and I believe that leadership is one of his weaknesses. Again, he no doubt has lots of strengths. I think he probably, I read one of the Athens News editorials that said that he was well known as a policy wonk. I think that's probably one of his strengths. I think he probably knows the issues that he enjoys working on better than anybody in the community. But that doesn't mean he can translate that into action and into solutions that will further the city. So I would give Paul a grade, perhaps a C. He's a good effort, but this is not in his wheelhouse.
So the question is, how's Paul Weil doing in his first term?
That's the question.
It's stellar.
I won.
Actually, he talks about weakness in leadership. There's different leadership styles. I'm coming out of academics where consensus building is more important. Looking at the facts, the wonk part, the devil is in the details. I recognize the fact that I'd have leadership issues. I went to the Athens Leadership Program through the Athens Foundation and went through that course to improve and sharpen my skills. I go whenever I possible to Mayors Association, Partnership for Progress Mayors Association, to learn from other mayors of what I can do better. I think I do a good job cheerleading. I think I can take myself seriously. I can jump in Stroudsburg Lake in the middle of winter just to go for a fundraising. I believe that shows some leadership there. There are different types of leadership. Military leadership works in juntas, works in situations where paramilitary is necessary. From my point of view, my leadership is consensus-based, fact-based whenever possible. And I don't know how much time I have. How much time do I have? A minute, okay. So I have a lot to learn. I'd be an idiot to say I don't, okay? Because anybody who says I've got it all, there's no room for improvement. And I think with this 4 years, I've actually improved quite a bit. In the next 4 years, you're going to get your money's worth. Thank you.
Randy?
Well, I don't consider my run for mayor to be a junta, but
I hope not.
I do think in the United States we do peaceful transfers of power, and I'd like to say that I'm in favor of that. The leadership style issue is all a matter of it's a matter of what works, and obviously leadership is something that people aren't born with; they learn it over the years, and so I don't think there's anything different about leadership in the military and leadership in the position of mayor.
Okay, so we've concluded the 8 questions from the news media reps. Thank you all very much. So now let's turn to questions from you, the audience. And so let's see, Paul, you'll address this one first. Do you support issue 2 on the November ballot? Do you support issue 2 on the November ballot?
When you say support, I would say vote no for issue 2.
Okay.
Essentially, it's a diss of our unions. I talked about our public servants who actually are out there in the middle of the night. They protect us. These are the police force. This is your firemen that you want to have more of and policemen that you want to have more of. This is the water worker who's in the middle of a hole in the middle of winter with water spouting up at him at midnight. I live on the west side on Mary Street. I can hear when they have the backup trucks, when there's a water call, I know what's happening at that time. I know that at this point there's a water line break. They're out there at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock at night trying to fix that water break. They're there at 4 o'clock in the morning plowing your streets so you can get up in the morning. And this is saying, oh, collective bargaining is not necessary. They're resting on their laurels. They should be appreciated. They are, by what they do, to be underappreciated. Their intention is to be seamless, to make the city function without a fanfare, without a parade, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the winter. I think it's an effective, I don't think it was an effective budget fixing device, Senate Bill 5, and I think you should vote no on issue 2. Thank you.
Okay, Randy?
Well, I support issue 2 because in large part I believe it is good for the state and good for our city. I don't believe that everything in it is good. I think over time it should be fixed. As I understand it, the only 2 things that will take effect immediately are the minimum contributions to pensions and retirement. The rest of it has to be worked out as they go along, and it can be adjusted. I understand the feeling of betrayal, if that's what what the word you want to use. I felt the same thing in the early '90s when the Clinton administration took away free health care for life for military people. It seems like a quaint thing to think about right now. But that's what I was promised when I joined the military. But in 1993, the Clinton administration took that away, and I understand the feeling. But extraordinary times require extraordinary measures, and perhaps this is the measure that needs to be taken care of. It doesn't matter that much whether I support it or not, or whether Paul supports it or not. The voters of Ohio are going to make a decision, and we as mayor, whoever wins, will have to adapt to that. If the SB 5 succeeds and prevails, then there are some opportunities in this experiment that the state legislature put in to have some cost savings for the city, and that may help with the budget shortfalls. If not, we'll deal with it and we'll press forward. So you, the voters, will decide whether issue 2 passes or doesn't pass, and we as mayor will have to deal with that.
Okay, Paul, 30 seconds if you choose.
Again, I wouldn't change my point of view. No on issue 2. Again, I don't think it's really going to help the budget that much. The cycle for most of our unions is about 3 years, so any savings would not occur immediately. It would have to be over a 3-year period. The budget crisis that's been actually put forward is actually the decrease of income tax and tax revenues and a loss of local government funds generated by the state. So they've created their own crisis, so to speak. And it's not really a crisis, but because it started in the Taft administration more than 5 years ago.
Okay, thank you both. And the next question. Let's see, Randy, you'll address this one first. It seems that some people think there is much division in the city. Where do you stand on this question, and what will you do to make this better?
No other specifics of what the division is?
Nope.
Well, the only issue that I've discussed on my website, and I'll address it here, I guess, the division was raised earlier between students and long-term residents. In that, I believe when you looked at the reaction that the Student Senate and the students in general gave to the changes to the noise ordinance, what I saw was that the students were perceiving that they were being scapegoated as the problem. And I think they've got good reason for that. I think in lots of comments that are made, they are portrayed to be the problem in the city. And I don't believe that. In my military career, I never stayed in one location longer than 4 years, and I never once felt I wasn't a member of that community when I was there. And I don't know why they should feel like they aren't either. So the students there needs to be some leadership from the mayor to convey to the students that they are not the problem. People with bad behavior, people who don't respect the property and the privacy rights of other people, whether they be students or otherwise, are the problem, and they need to be addressed with competent, efficient enforcement of the ordinances. And I think that will go a long way to healing the rift between the students and the long-term residents.
Thank you. Paul?
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, I certainly will.
Okay.
It seems that some people think there is much division in the city. Where do you stand on this? What will you do to make this better?
I would have to question if there's much division in the city. I recognize when I got into office and as city council member that for 2 years, and as zoning board of appeals, that this is a very articulate, intelligent, diverse city. For a southeast Ohio city, we have university faculties, members, we have staff, we have students, we have an influx of students every year, eternally 18. They're always going to be young. They're always going to come. We're going to get older, okay? We have to expect there's going to be some division of opinions and where we want to go. I think we work well together. I think there always will be some issues. Some will bubble to the top. Some will get acute. Hence the town hall meetings. We had this past April, we had a division, which was diversity, civility, and community. Town hall meeting. You emceed it yourself. The effort there, of course, was to bring out these issues, to discuss them. And I think we do a good job of that. It's like any family. There's family members who don't talk to each other for 20 years. The idea I think we have is, I think from my point of view, is that we are able to talk to each other. We are able to actually have a discussion. We are able to, as Randy said, we're not trying to run a nasty campaign. We see each other on the street. We work together on the Disabilities Commission. This is family here. We're here because we love the city. First premise, okay? The students may be here for education, but they learn to love the city too. You talk to any alumni who comes back. You talk to any student who's here. They may not know enough. They may not know because they're learning. Because I didn't know when I was a student. I was an idiot when I was a student, okay? But at the same time, this is why they're in school. This is why we should be a neighbor and a family on this. And therefore, as I say, division, yes, there's going to be some. Keep it from getting acute? I hope not. I think we can always talk it out. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. And Randy, 30 seconds if you choose.
Well, there's another aspect to the division in the community also, and that's there are when events occur and there's a difference of opinion. I would like to see the mayor step forward and provide some leadership and try to reconcile the two sides, so that we don't have situations where everything needs to go to a lawsuit. The situation at University Estates, the Graham Drive, there are lots of different situations where I think some leadership would go a long way toward healing the wounds so they don't get out of hand.
Thank you. Paul, you'll address this next question first. And this is moderately long. Let me read it twice.
Okay.
And I'll tell you that first rather than you start and I say just so. Could each of you comment on how you see military experience as helping to either qualify or disqualify one in the performance of the duties of mayor of this beautiful little democracy, the city of Athens? And the writer of the question is a veteran of 2 wars, Second World War and Korea. So now, let me read it again. Could each of you comment on how you see military experience as helping to either qualify or disqualify one in the performance of the duties of mayor of this beautiful little democracy, city of Athens? Paul.
In terms of military experience, I do not have any. I think my number was 226 for the lottery, or 228, I forget. The military has its place, experience has its place in running a military operation. It does give you logistics. It does give you administration abilities. It is not tailored to actually being sustainable. It is not tailored to being actually green, let's call it. I watched the big trucks go through, the tanks at 2 miles, 2 gallons per mile, I guess. I think it really just has to do with styles of leadership. Again, my leadership's coming out of academics. I think it's more open and more simpatico with democracy. But I could not having the experience of being in the military, I could not contrast it in one sense or the other. I know when I watch the military mindset, it is often hierarchical and therefore always information going from top down, and therefore it does not always get the job done in many cases. I believe that communication is always actually occurs better among equals. And I'm not sure how that applies or does not apply to the military. I've got 15 seconds. I think in terms of a university town, my style is more suited. I'll say that much. That's all.
Thank you. Randy?
Where would I begin? I've taught leadership for a number of years. What you need to understand about the military is that military organizations, just like any other organization, require a mission, and they require teamwork, and they require team building. And so this organization, the city staff of 160 people, or a military organization, when it comes right down to it, are not all that different. And I would say that military experience and leadership is certainly not a disqualifier. I would say it's, I'm not sure it's a qualifier either. It's just, it's a source of leadership experience that I have that I feel is pertinent to running the city. This city administration needs to understand that they have a mission. They need to sit down and they all need to be pulling together to accomplish that mission. The mission is provide the best service possible to the citizens of this town. And there is a way to do that, to get everybody to pull together. General Eisenhower said leadership is the art of getting people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it. And that requires leadership. And so that's what I will be bringing to this job. Team building. Everybody needs to be pulling together. So there are lots of applicable things, in my opinion, that my experience would bring to this job. Are there other ways to get leadership experience? Of course, but that's this is the one that I have. And I would just say one thing about the collegial decision making. I'm all for that. I believe everybody should be involved in the decision process, as I said before, in terms of problem solving. But in the end, someone needs to make a decision, and that person is the one in charge. And in this case, it would be the mayor, and I would be willing to make decisions.
Thank you. Paul, 30 seconds.
I've made decisions. Decisions are out there. I've made mistaken decisions, and I've made good decisions. In terms of democracy and leadership, I think there is a contrast between military and non-military in the sense of democracy. In terms of mission, what we have here is serving the people, serving the citizens, making their dreams come true, with the resources we have. I think we do pretty well at that at this point. I think our group pulls together quite well. Again, team building, I have it. It's going on right now. It happens all the time, every day.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, the next question. Randy, you'll address this one first. Would you or will you continue city support for community gardens and community food initiatives? Yes. There are good programs. Every military base I was ever stationed at had a community garden. There was a plot of land that was put aside for individuals on the base to grow their own crops because we all had base housing and there was no way that you could grow crops in your own yard. So it resembles that to me. The Community Food Initiative is an excellent program. The plot of land over at West Side Park and the one on Hope Drive with the community over there, I think are excellent programs, and they're very similar to what I'm used to from my background in the military. So excellent way to teach young people how to grow their own food and do sustainable food production. I support that.
Thank you. Paul?
I would support it, of course. I have. Actually, I was looking in the garden for Rhonda Clark. I thought she plugged that in there someplace, but I don't see her. Yes, I think the community gardens are important for resiliency within our city. We need to build a resource of a connection between what we eat and where we grow it. The Yale group up at Hope Gardens, that's young entrepreneurs in the, Hope area. They actually learn, not only do they learn gardening, they also learn entrepreneurship. They're at the farmers market every Saturday selling their wares when it comes ripe. I think it is important to keep the gardens going. I know we've been trying to work on getting some fruit trees out in the neighborhoods. There's the concept of a grazing city. We're a long way from that because we have issues of where to put the trees and only so much public area. So it's a given. It's between the composting and the community gardens. I think we are trying to build a sustainable city and green.
Thank you. Randy, 30 seconds.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. If you will pardon me, that sneeze means I'm cool, so my head goes back on. That's all there is to it. Okay. The next question, Paul, you will address this one first. Will you act against members of your own political party in the state house or capitol, that is governor's office, to defend and advance Athens' interests?
Yes.
Fine.
I'm a cheerleader. I'm the mayor. That's my job.
Fine. And I think you're saying that is your answer.
Yes.
And we'll go to Randy.
Yes.
Okay. And you probably don't need your 30 seconds on this one then. No. But it's yours if you want to spend it. Okay. So now, we'll go to Randy for this next question then. Please discuss how the city of Athens can address climate change. That's yours, Randy.
Well, there have been lots of programs that have been initiated in the city in the last 4 years, longer than that, that have gone a long way toward producing energy with the array at the community center, with energy efficiency programs in the city. I support all those. In fact, I guess my only real complaint with those programs is that we seem to be a little disjointed. We seem to be going after the nearest shiny object rather than having a plan in mind about how we're going to proceed in a coherent manner to get where we want to go. Right now, I think we're sort of headed east toward the sun, as the old saying, if you don't know where you're going, any direction will take you there. I think we need a plan. I think we need to have an idea where we want to go with this, with the sustainable initiatives, the energy efficiency initiatives, the whole gamut of sustainability issues. If anything, I would enforce that by putting someone in charge of it and making sure that we come up with a plan so that we know from year to year where we're going with this, so that we stand the best chance of getting where we want to go.
Paul?
As Randy alluded to, we have been working towards that. We have solar panels at the community garden. We've introduced, with the help of council, green fleet policies. We've put bike paths in for pedestrian and walking, so to get out of our cars. The Safe Routes to School grants that we are now in round 3 is to actually increase health and have students walk to class, walk to school. We've added sidewalks because of that. We've added crosswalks, flashing lights to do that. We have a perfection group. We're in phase 1 of our perfection group who looks at the energy efficiency of our buildings at this point. We've spent $400,000 to actually improve the community center, the code office, the parking garage, as well as the city hall. We have phase 2 and 3. 2 and 3 hopefully we'll put forward if council lets us. We go for the low-hanging fruit whenever possible. Some of the things are shiny and new, particularly solar panels. We would like to see other initiatives put forward, but some are not possible given the resources. It always comes down to resources, how much we can invest at any given time. I hope to make it work better all the time because it'll save money, it'll make us more resilient, and again, reduce our carbon footprint.
Thank you. Randy?
Well, in 30 seconds, I'll talk fast. There's also, the citizens of the town need to do more, perhaps as well. One of the initiatives I would like to have is a building inspector, and if we have a building inspection process, perhaps we could, give discounts to the permit process for projects that have solar arrays or have other water saving programs, that sort of thing, so that we can encourage our citizens to save as well.
Thank you. We are on our 15th question, and I say that because this is the last one that I've been handed, and I don't see much of a pile there, so we'll take this one, and then of course we have closing statements, and as I always chuckle, there's always a significant danger I will forget the closing statements at the end of a great evening, but I'm thinking of it right now. So, Paul, you will address this question first. Would you make the service safety director's job separate, and what background would you require?
Separate.
I suppose that means split service director, safety director from...
I see. Ohio Revised Code does allow for a service director and a safety director. Many cities have combined them, mostly because the duties of the safety director actually fall within the realm of the police and the fire. And of course, having their own chiefs, they have their own command structure. So usually what you're seeing in terms of the safety aspect is not as necessary. So the combination of service safety director saves money, combines both, although she is, Paula Horan-Mosley, who is great at her job, actually has command of the chiefs, both chiefs, fire and police. Splitting them apart would not be terribly effective at this point, and considering we were talking about reduced budgets, probably be more expensive. We do have a deputy, or rather an assistant service safety director. Whether I would want to change that to other duties is another reorganization discussion that has occurred several times in the past 3 years.
Thank you. Randy?
No, I don't believe there's a need to separate those two positions. I think in a city this size, the span of control for the job is appropriate. The service safety director can handle both those responsibilities, and as the mayor said, the Ohio Revised Code talks about both positions, but it says you can combine them, and I think that's the appropriate thing for Athens. We don't need another position to put further strain on our budget.
Thank you. 30 seconds? No.
Yep.
Fine. Okay. We've got to the point at which, if I don't forget it now, we will have two-minute closing statements, and the random process at the beginning of the evening indicates that Randy will make the first closing statement and then Paul. So, 2-minute closing statement, Randy Morris.
Well, I hope you'll vote for me. I hope that you'll see in me the qualities that you feel like would be helpful in a mayor. I believe I have common sense. I have the ability to make decisions. I have the ability to lead people, get everybody to pull together as a team and accomplish the mission, which is, again, to provide the best service possible to the citizens of this community. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. I don't pull any punches. I try to speak frankly, but I can work with anybody who wants to work with me. And so the divided government won't be a problem, in my opinion. This community, I think, would benefit, frankly, from a different point of view, a different perspective on the problems that we face in the community. I think I have some insight into how to solve problems, and I believe this community is, to use a military term, this is a target-rich environment when it comes to problems in the community. There are lots of them out there, and they need some creative leadership, they need some creative problem solving, and they need someone who can make a decision and press forward and make this community a better place to live. So I hope that you'll consider hiring me for your next mayor, and I will promise you that I will provide you the same principled leadership that I've provided other organizations that I've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Paul?
Well, I was really kidding when I said my activities as mayor is stellar. I'd probably give myself a B+ or an A-. And I say that this is a university town, so you may as well have a grade. My problem solving as a lab tech, many years, 26 years at the university, gives me the ability to look at variables and decide. I have made hard choices. I've made choices that I don't agree with, but for the good of the city. I've talked to anybody who's willing to talk to me. I must say, my door is always open. I think we're going into a stretch of lean times, actually trickling down from Columbus. I think you're going to need some experience and a sense of priorities of what's already occurred. I look at what I've accomplished so far in terms of quality of life issues, whether it's community gardens, whether it's dog parks, whether it's quality of life for the bus systems. I've tried my best to improve the city whenever possible. I'm willing to listen to what anybody has to say about improving that city and weigh it out. I think we have a good city, a great city, and I truly hope that I love this city. I came here. I'm a transplant. I want to stay here all my life. I've proved that out. I'm on year 30 now. I think it's worthwhile for another 4 years for me to do the job that if you elect me, I'll do. Thanks. And I'll always listen.
Thank you both. Let me express just a few little thanks here. Candidates, thank you very much. Without you, we probably would not be here. You members.
We wouldn't have these reserved seats either.
Members of news media, thank you very much. This is sponsored by the library and the League of Women Voters. And Todd, who else from your staff is here? Thank you. And who else from your staff is here?
Just me today.
Just you tonight. Thank you very, very much.
Ellsworth, put a plug in for League of Women Voters. Join the League of Women Voters.
That's right. The mayor is suggesting that you might well want to join the League of Women Voters. Let me thank some of them who've been hard at work here. Mary Lee Powell has been collecting questions. Catherine Jellison has done the timekeeping. Ed Baum has chaired this whole evening, set it up and carried it out. And Ed, thank you very, very much. Jerry Miller and Debbie Schmeeding reviewed the questions. And I think those are all the names on there. And I always have to have about 5 seconds worth. When I'm involved in an evening like this, I find it a thrill. And I think one could go any place in the world, any government process in the world anywhere, and say, look at what we did here in Athens as a magnificent standard of what our world could attempt to achieve in terms of political discourse and harmony and presenting the candidates in an audience which was most assuredly attentive and thoughtful and also came up with a bunch of good questions. Thanks all of you for coming. See you back next week.